American history is filled with amazing individuals who created extraordinary lives for themselves by using their talents to create a better world for all of us. Bill Gates comes immediately to mind as one of these amazing Americans. By the time he was 30, Gates had founded Microsoft, the largest computer software company in the world. He created the software used on 90% of our computers, and in the process, he had become a billionaire. In recent years, Gates founded the Gates Foundation, which gives billions of dollars to healthcare, education, and causes all around the globe. Bill Gates is the most influential person in U.S. history.
Whoa there, young lady. I appreciate the great contribution this Bill Gates has made to modern American society, but is he really the most influential person in United States history? Let me introduce myself. I am Benjamin Franklin. Writer, printer, scientist, inventor, and founding father of our country. In my day, I made several important discoveries and inventions and signed both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Not too shabby. Now, let's not make this a competition, but why don't you take a look at my life, and maybe you will agree that I was the Bill Gates of my time.
You have a point there, Ben. Let's take a closer look at the incredible life and accomplishments of Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin had a humble beginning. He was born on January 17, 1706, in Boston, and was the 8th of 15 children. His father was a candle maker, and the family was considered to be poor. From the beginning, Ben's parents stressed the values of education, hard work, and honesty.
Let me tell you a little story about just how important honesty was to my parents. When I was a small boy, my friends and I stole rocks from a neighbor and built a small wharf. My father was angry at our deed. I said, "Father, but look how useful the wharf is." He replied, "Nothing was useful which was not honest."
Ben's family had strong influences on him in other ways, too. His brother James owned a printing press in Boston and published a newspaper. When Ben was 12, he was sent to be James's apprentice. Soon the paper began to publish the Silenced Do-Good Letters, a series of funny stories about life in Boston. However, not everyone was laughing at what the newspaper published. Ben's brother James was sent to prison because the paper criticized local officials. It was young Ben who rose to the occasion and kept the paper in print while his brother served time in jail.
Ah, yes, I clearly remember this time in my life. Why should my brother be jailed for writing the truth about our public officials? In fact, this incident led me to write these words: "Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech."
Wow! Who knew that we would have Ben Franklin as our honored guest today? Let's see how much we've learned about his amazing life so far. Question number 1. In what city was Ben Franklin born? Is it A, Philadelphia, B, New York, C, Boston, or D, Baltimore? The answer is C. Ben Franklin was born in Boston. Here's question number 2. How old was Ben when he became a printing apprentice for his brother James? Was he A, 12, B, 15, C, 18, or D, 21? If you answered A, you knew that Ben was only 12 years old when he became a printing apprentice. Here's question number 3. Why was Ben's brother James sent to jail? Was it A, Because he did not pay his taxes? B. Because he stole some bread from the local baker? C. Because he published newspaper articles criticizing local officials? Or D. Because he refused to join the local army? The correct answer is C. Ben's brother James was sent to jail for publishing news articles that criticized local officials. By the time Ben was 17, he was unhappy with his life in Boston. He was arguing with his father over his career choices and with his brother over the paper's legal problems. Then, Ben made the brave decision to find his fortune elsewhere. In the 1700s, the idea of moving away from your family in search of better opportunities was brand new. In 1723, Ben did just that and left Boston by himself for Philadelphia. Ben's new life was off to a great start. He quickly found work with John Reed, a printer. When Reed's business started to fail, Franklin bought the press himself. It was during this time that Ben decided to dedicate his life to the idea of self-improvement. This dedication first paid off with his invention of the daily planner, something many people today still use to help keep their lives organized. Next, Ben formed the Junto, a group for people who wanted to discuss political and philosophical ideas. Each member of the Junto owned his own business and had to share his knowledge and teach his skills to the rest of the club.
This idea of sharing and discussing your knowledge was important to me. Like I always said, being ignorant is not so much a shame as being unwilling to learn. Things were going well for me. In 1729, I published the first edition of the Pennsylvania Gazette, which later became the most well-respected paper in all of Pennsylvania. Being a newspaper publisher did make me well known, but it didn't make me wealthy until I came up with a brilliant idea. Why not publish a calendar combined with a book of daily advice on how to live a healthy and prosperous life?
Well, Ben did just that and published the first edition of Poor Richard's Almanac in 1723. People loved it. The immense popularity of Poor Richard's Almanac made Ben a very wealthy man.
Oh, how I loved sharing wisdom in Poor Richard's Almanac. I'm sure some of my ideas are still around today. Have you ever heard, "A penny saved is a penny earned," or "The early bird eats the worm"? Well, guess who wrote them first?
I'm guessing it's not Bill Gates.
No, my fair lady, it was yours truly. But keep going with your story. It's really starting to get interesting.
Whoa! Not so fast, Ben. Let's find out what our viewers have learned about your life so far. Here's question number 1. What type of work did Ben find when he moved to Philadelphia? Did he become A, a printer, B, a judge, C, a carpenter, or D, a minister? The correct answer is A. Ben became a printer after moving to Philadelphia. Let's try question number 2. What was the name of the political and philosophical discussion group that Ben created? Was it A, the Thinkers, B, the Planners, C, the Junto, or D, the Creative Five? If you answered C, you knew that the political and philosophical discussion group created by Ben Franklin was called the Junto. Here's question number 3. What was the name of the calendar filled with advice on how to live a happy and healthy life that Ben published? Was it A, Live Your Best Life, B, Poor Richard's Almanac, C, the Pennsylvania Gazette, or D, Advice for All? The correct answer is B. Poor Richard's Almanac was the name of the calendar combined with ideas on how to live a healthy life published by Ben Franklin. by now we know that Benjamin Franklin was a successful businessman and inventor. But did you know that he was also a public and civic leader who created many of the institutions which are a part of our daily American life? You might be surprised to learn that it was Ben Franklin who created the modern postal system. In fact, he was the very first postmaster general. Ben also created the first lending library in America and the first fire department. He even founded the University of Pennsylvania. Ben Franklin gave local communities the great foundation they needed to become the center of our lives today. It seems as if Ben was constantly creating and inventing and trying to understand how the world works. Like many inventors, Ben had problems that needed solutions. He wanted to swim faster, so he invented swimming fins. When Ben was frustrated that his glasses didn't make everything clear to see, he created bifocal glasses with glass to see things in the distance on the top and glass for reading and viewing close-up objects on the bottom. Both of these inventions still serve us well today. One invention that Ben was particularly proud about was a cast iron wood-burning stove, known as the Franklin stove. It was designed to serve as a central heating source for homes and allowed buildings without fireplaces to be heated. Franklin did not get a patent on this idea for the stove. Instead, he gave it away. Ben wanted to share his idea so that people could heat their homes and be warm in the winter. Wait, did you hear that? Did I hear thunder? Thankfully, we have Ben around to help us make sense of our rumbling skies.
Oh, you need not worry. I know a thing or two about lightning. Back in my day, people did not know about lightning and viewed it with superstition and fear. Perhaps that's because lightning strikes were very dangerous and caused many fires and deaths. I had a hunch that lightning was made of electricity. You see, I had noticed that electricity and lightning had a few things in common. They both created light, were attracted to metal, and had the same peculiar odor. In 1752, I designed an experiment to test my hypothesis.
So, on a cloudy day in June, 1752, Franklin and his son William set out to test his theory. Ben took a string and attached one end to a kite and a brass key to the other. William flew the kite into the cloud-filled sky. And after a few moments, the kite collected electricity from the storm clouds and conducted it down the string to the key. Franklin then touched the key and received a shock. This jolt was proof that lightning was indeed made of electricity.
In a second experiment, I connected the kite to an early form of battery called a Leyden jar. My theory was that lightning would strike the kite and the charge would get stored in the Leyden jar.
This experiment led Ben to create the lightning rod. The rod was made of metal and was attached to the highest point on a building. Lightning would hit the rod instead of the building, and the rod conducted the current of electricity into the ground instead of the house. Franklin's lightning rods protected many homes and buildings from lightning strikes and are still used today. Well, we have just learned some shocking information. Let's see how much we know. Question number 1. Which of the following civic institutions did Ben Franklin create? A, the state police system. B, the modern highway system. C, the modern postal system. Or D, the first public school system. The correct answer is C. Ben Franklin created the modern postal system. Here's question number 2. Which of Ben Franklin's inventions was created without a patent so that its idea could be copied and shared freely? Was it A, the Franklin stove, B, bifocals, C, swimming fins, or D, the library system? If you answered A, You know that Ben Franklin created the Franklin stove without a patent so that people could copy his idea and keep their homes and buildings warm in the winter. Let's try question number 3. In what year did Ben Franklin conduct his famous experiment that proved that lightning was electricity? Was it A, 1706, B, 1752, C, 1802, or D, 1888? The correct answer is B. It was in 1752 that Franklin conducted his famous experiment that proved that lightning was electricity. By the 1750s, writing, printing, and science had brought Ben fame and fortune. Meanwhile, the colonists were angry about being taxed unfairly by England. Since Franklin was considered a civic leader, the Pennsylvania Assembly asked him to go to England to represent the colonies and share their disputes or disagreements with the British government. In 1752, Ben moved to London, where he socialized with the world's greatest scientists and philosophers and met with small groups of people to explain the colony's point of view. When the American Revolution began in Boston, Franklin found himself in the middle of the conflict. At first, Ben attempted to negotiate the differences between the colonists and the British. As he tried to make the British government understand the colonists' desire to be independent, the British started to blame Franklin for the growing conflict.
I did my best to make them understand just how dedicated we colonists were to the idea of governing ourselves. I told the British government, I hope the administration will be convinced that the whole body of Americans will resist rather than submit.
Soon, Franklin would find himself in a dangerous situation. On January 29th, 1774, shortly after the Boston Tea Party, Ben was summoned to appear before the King's Privy Council. It was a trap. In an unexpected hearing, the British charged him with treason, or being a traitor, and accused him of convincing the colonists to rise up against the king. Franklin quickly fled London, and was even more committed to the idea of the American Revolution.
I did my best, but in the end, it appears I am too much of an American for them.
Back in America, Franklin was selected to represent Pennsylvania in the First Continental Congress. He was completely dedicated to the idea of Americans' independence from England and helped Thomas Jefferson write the Declaration of Independence. Once the Declaration was signed and the War for Independence had begun, Franklin was chosen for an important position: to be the American ambassador to France. His job was to convince the French to join the American Revolution to help the colonists win their freedom. Ben certainly made a big impression when he was in France. Instead of dressing in the high fashion of the French, he wore homespun American clothes and a raccoon hat instead of a wig. Ben's unique look and his charming personality were a hit, and he was immensely popular with the French people. It even became fashionable for the French to keep an image of Franklin on display in their homes. Many believe that Ben Franklin was like America's first rock star in France. He was smart and used his incredible popularity to convince the French to support the American cause. And in 1779, he convinced them to join the war. The Revolutionary War raged on for a few years until 1781, when British General Charles Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown. Finally, there was an end to the fighting. But now, a peace treaty, or agreement, needed to be made with England. Who would Congress send to do such an important job? Ben Franklin and John Adams were among those sent to France to work out the deal. The Treaty of Paris was signed in September of 1783. The revolution was officially over, and the United States was officially recognized as an independent country.
Ah, yes. That was important work we did. We colonists had to work together to stand against the king and create our own country. As I said during the war, we must all hang together, or assuredly we will all hang separately. I think those words served me well as I went on to help create the rules that govern our great country.
We are really getting to know our friend Ben. Now we understand that he was not only a publisher and inventor, he was an important figure in the American Revolution. Let's see what we know. Question number 1. Why was Ben Franklin sent to France after the start of the Revolutionary War? A. He went as a representative of King George III. B. He went to convince the French to support the American Revolution. C. He went to teach the French what he knew about electricity. D. He went to share his knowledge of the printing business. The correct answer is B. After the start of the Revolutionary War, Ben Franklin was sent to France to convince the French to support the American Revolution. Here's question number 2. While in France, what did Ben Franklin wear on his head instead of a wig? A. A raccoon skin. B. A handkerchief. C. A military helmet. Or D. A Native American headdress. If you answered A, you knew that while in France, Franklin wore a raccoon skin instead of a wig. Let's try question number 3. In what year was the Treaty of Paris signed? Was it A, 1679, B, 1776, C, 1783, or D, 1885? The correct answer is C. The Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783.
At this point in my amazing life, I was 81 years old. But I wasn't done yet. There was still important work to be done.
After the war, Ben was selected by the people of Pennsylvania to represent them at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787. The convention's purpose was to create a new government for the United States of America. Franklin opened the convention by nominating his friend, George Washington, to lead the proceedings. Together, the two elder statesmen guided the delegates in creating the Constitution. As the convention drew to a close, Franklin gave his Rising Sun speech, which persuaded the delegates to sign the Constitution.
Things did not always go smoothly at the convention. There was a great deal of arguing and debate about the best path for our great nation. Often I looked at the sun painted on my friend George Washington's chair. I realized this sun perfectly symbolized the need for the members of the convention to come to an agreement and sign the Constitution. I told the delegates I looked at that behind the president without being able to tell whether it was rising or setting. But now I have the happiness to know it is a rising and not a setting sun.
Ben Franklin certainly has had an action-packed life filled with work that was important to all of us. Let's see if we can answer a few questions about Ben's time at the Constitutional Convention. Question number 1. How old was Ben Franklin when he went to the Constitutional Convention? Was he A, 25, B, 42, C, 66, or D, 81? The correct answer is D. Ben Franklin was 81 years old when he went to the Constitutional Convention. Here's question 2. What was the purpose of the Constitutional Convention? Was it A, to create a new government for the United States? B, to establish a peace agreement with England? C, to create a trade agreement with France? Or D, B and C? If you answered A, you knew that the purpose of the Constitutional Convention was to create a new government for the United States. Here's our third question. What did Ben Franklin use as inspiration in his Constitutional Convention speech aimed at encouraging other members to sign the Constitution? Was it A, an American flag, B, a copy of the Declaration of Independence, C, a raccoon skin cap, or D, The painting of a sun on the back of President Washington's chair. The correct answer is D. Ben used the image of the sun painted on George Washington's chair as the inspiration for his speech to the members of the convention. Ben Franklin continued to be active in public service even after signing the Constitution. In 1789 and again in 1790, he submitted the first petition to abolish slavery to the Congress of the United States of America. Benjamin Franklin died on April 17, 1790, after creating an amazing life for himself.
Well, I always believe that without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. I guess I strive to live up to that belief.
Well, Ben, after what we've learned about you today, I think we can all agree that you certainly did live up to that belief, and our lives are better for it. Franklin represented the nation he helped to create. He was a self-made man who rose in the world through hard work and self-improvement. He was a successful businessman, scientist, and politician. He had always worked for the common good.
And having emerged from the poverty and obscurity into which I was born, to a state of affluence and some degree of reputation in the world, others may want to apply my lessons and find my life one fit to be imitated. You see, my friends, perhaps this Bill Gates is taking my words to heart and is creating a better world for all.
Thinking question. Which personality trait of Ben Franklin's played the biggest role in his success? Why do you think so?